Hel's dominion was the desolate, cold wasteland of death. In both name and characterization, she and her world were interchangeable. Many of Norse mythology's best-known stories take place in Hel's domain. Hel is at the core of events throughout Ragnarok, from the initial prophecy to the battle's gruesome climax. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new video on the channel. Today we are going to talk about the origin and mythos of Hel. Before we get started with the video, don't forget to smash the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. Hel was one of Loki's three monstrous children with his mistress, Angrboda. Loki and Angrboda withheld the presence of their offspring from the gods for a time, but when the Air discovered their existence, they were deeply disturbed. Doomsday prophecies have been linked to Loki's progeny. Although Angrboda is not described in full, the Prose Edda implies that her involvement alarmed the gods. To decrease the risk posed by Loki's children, the gods decided to remove them from Jotunheim and relocate them to a safer location. The serpent, Jormungandr, had not yet achieved his full size. He was simply thrown into the sea, but he would eventually grow enormous enough to circle the globe. For a time, the gods attempted to tame the wolf Fenrir. Tyr sacrificed his hand to have him shackled with unbreakable chains when he grew too huge and nasty to trust. Hel appeared to be the most human of the three. The gods, on the other hand, quickly recognized her as no ordinary giantess, while subsequent art depicted her as rotting and hideous. The Poetic Edda states that her appearance quietly alluded to her relationship to death. Even as a child, she was a light blue-gray with a sad, downcast expression. Despite being one of Loki's monsters, she did not pose the same immediate physical threat as her bestial siblings. Odin decided that Hel would be banished but not imprisoned. Hel was banished from Asgard and Midgard to a nearly inaccessible location. She was given authority over the dead. Loki was not instantly punished for concealing his children's births from the gods. Despite the fact that the prophecies of Ragnarok revolved heavily around his axe, Loki would remain free until after Baldur's death. It was commonly assumed to be in the world of Niflheim. Niflhel was the name of the special dwelling of the dead on this primordial planet of frost and mist. However, Hel's domain is frequently referred to simply as Hel. The ruler of the dead, like the Greek Hades, was associated with the area she ruled. He was not imprisoned in the same way that Fenrir and Loki would later be, but her world was nonetheless a prison. Her house was reported to be beneath one of Yggdrasil's vast branches, which prevented her and the inhabitants of her planet from freely wandering. The bravest warriors who died in combat were chosen to travel to Odin's palace of Valhalla or to be with Freya in Folkvangr. Folkvangr was eventually thought to hold individuals who died well, but not in conflict, such as ladies who died during childbirth. People who became stranded at sea were hauled in nets to Aegir's underwater castle. They joined the treasures of shipwrecks at the ocean's bottom. Most people, however, perished in a less spectacular manner. They ended up in Hel as a result of disease, old age, misfortune, or hunger. Snorri Sturluson later changed his mind about Hel. He envisioned Hel as the location where those who committed heinous atrocities were transported, influenced by medieval Christian conceptions of reward and punishment in the afterlife. People felt they were likely to enter Hel's house after death during most of Norse history. The prospect was unappealing. Hel, located within Niflheim, was a land of constant cold, fog, and darkness. It was a joyless and miserable place, despite the fact that it was not created for punishment. Hel, on the other hand, was not harsh to her people. The Prose Edda said that she could provide accommodation and presence to individuals who died of old age or disease, affording them some tiny solace in her terrible world. In one of the most well-known Norse mythology stories, Loki tricked his blind brother into attacking him with a sword fashioned of mistletoe, the only thing in the world that could damage him. Baldur's death devastated the hearts of all the gods. They organized a spectacular burial at which all of the Aesir and Vanir gathered to mourn. Nanna, Baldur's wife, was so devastated by the loss that she died of sadness as the funeral began. Her remains were placed on her husband's funeral pyre so that they could travel to Hel together. Baldur's mother, Frigg, had attempted to assure his safety by making everyone and everything in the Nine Worlds pledge not to harm him. Despite having missed the mistletoe, she was still determined to safeguard her son. She begged the gods for help in making the long and perilous journey to Hel. She hoped that Hel would be moved by their plight and release Baldur back into the world of the living. Hermod offered to help. Odin loaned him Sleipnir, his speedy horse capable of traveling across realms. The trek took 9 nights. Even on Sleipnir, Hermod rode in complete darkness till he arrived at a bridge at the edge of Niflheim. He reached the closed gates of Hel by continuing downward. Sleipnir quickly leapt over them, allowing Hermod to enter the realm while still alive. When Hermod returned, the gods spread out across the 9 worlds, requesting every creature they saw to weep at Baldur's death. Every one of them did, without fail. Even rocks and mountains mourned when they realized Baldur would be lost forever. They were almost finished when they came across an ancient giantess dwelling in a remote area of Jotunheim. When they urged her to cry, folks said she didn't care about Odin's son and would let Hel take him. Thok's refusal to mourn meant that Baldur was permanently banished to Hel. The gods would continue to lament his death. Some beings had been sent to Hel despite the fact that they were not dead. Other residents were among the dead, yet they were still mentioned in myths and folklore. It is worth noting that the majority of the beings portrayed in Hel are linked to Ragnarok in some fashion. When the Volva delivers Odin's prophecy, she mentions that Hel will play a vital role. She could be referring to either the goddess of the realm or the location itself, as both are mentioned in the end story. Because the majority of the identified characters in Hel occur in Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, they are also linked to Ragnarok. Much of his writing is intimately related to the events leading up to the battle, and he used foreshadowing more than any other Norse writer in conveying his story or in conveying his story. When Ragnarok began, Loki and all 3 of his offspring would be free of the gods' penalties. Fenrir would burst his bindings, Jormungandr would reclaim his kingdom, and Hel would march out of Niflheim. She would bring all the dead who had been sent to her with her. She would amass a large army of bodies from the 9 worlds that Odin had made her the goddess of over the course of history. She'd be accompanied by the monsters who had been imprisoned beside her. Garm and Nidhogg would be released, as would the frost giants who still resided in Niflheim's frigid region. According to the descriptions of their invasion, Loki would be with his daughter's army at this time. He'd arrive at the battleground on the prow of Naglfar, a ship built entirely of the dead's finger and toenails. Hel's folk, the dead, and giants would make up his company. Despite the prominence of her realm and her inhabitants in Ragnarok, Hel's role in the conflict is never addressed. Hel, like the Aesir and Vanir goddesses, does not appear to take part in the conflict. Despite the fact that her family and her army of the dead will be destroyed, Hel may survive Ragnarok. According to the Prose Edda, which offers a description of the earth after the war, new, more pleasant realms will be created for the dead of Ragnarok and its aftermath. Despite the fact that she is not named, it is feasible that Hel will continue to rule over one or more of these future hereafter planets. Hel is recognized as the Norse goddess of death, according to a few sources. She ruled over a realm bearing her name. Hel, one of Loki and Angrboda's 3 offspring, was exiled when the gods recognized the harm she and her siblings posed. While her brothers were imprisoned, she was elevated to the position of ruler of the world of the dead. Hel's kingdom, which was thought to be in the Iceland of Niflheim, was a gloomy and dreary region. Apart from the dead, there were only Hel and a few bound beasts who lived there. However, many renowned mythologies involve passage to Hel's land. After Baldur's unexpected death, Odin went there to consult a Volva, and Hermod sought to bargain with the goddess. That's the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, let me know by giving it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.